We can survive without any of these other things. We can't survive without this one. Water is critical to our lives. We can get by without the gold, the copper, the silver, the aluminum, all this other stuff.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the Austin Earth Science Zoomerama. Today's speaker is John Mikels, a geoscientist with over 40 years experience. And today, John's going to speak to us in his talk entitled Rock Your World. Thank you, John.
Well, howdy, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, parents, teachers, whoever's out there watching. I think Linda just gave you a quick overview of who I am. So the focus of this little presentation is, there's so many things we have in our world that we use, we live in, and so forth, that make our lives what they are today. Well, a lot of these are derived from Earth resources. So I'm going to go over a few examples of those. But kind of a key little thing to keep in mind on everything we use in our everyday lives, you might remember this little line. If it can't be grown, it has to be mined. So if it doesn't grow like animals and plants and things, we got to get it out of the earth. So what I was going to do is just go through a few examples of things we have in our everyday lives and what type of resources they come from. And the key thing to keep in mind here is that we don't find these resources everywhere. So this is one of the things some geologists get to do, is go find more of these resources, because we use them up. A lot of them do not reproduce. So we have to work with what is already here on the earth. And sometimes these resources are only found in certain geologic areas or certain geologic environments. And so that's why it's up to the geologist to know where to find this resource, where on earth or what type of environment it's going to be found in. And then hopefully we can go make use of that resource. So I guess to start off with, we'll go with something that's pretty simple here. There's our penny. I'm not sure if that's in focus or not. Hold it up close to the camera. So there's a penny. Excuse me, my cat was coming up on the table. So it's a penny, and well, people think it's made of copper, but nowadays they're mainly sealed with a little coating of copper on the outside, but they used to be pure copper. So we still use copper. And copper is used in a variety of other things, like electric wires. There's a copper wire in there. Copper pipes and tubing. Usually, sometimes you find this as part of your plumbing in your house, though more people are using plastic these days. So if your boss said, we need more copper, would you go out and look for something that was this color? No. There's a variety of different minerals that have copper in them, and they tend to be either blue or green in color. So you might go looking for a rock that looks like this. Okay, I hope that's coming in nice and sharp for y'all. But there's several different varieties of copper minerals, but we only find them in certain environments. So it's up to the geologist to figure, where am I going to go find more of this copper so we can make more wires, tubing, coat more pennies, whatever else copper is used for. So that's one example. So let's go find another example here. Here we go. Another common metal that you all are probably quite familiar with. I'm sure you all have some of this in your house. And it's also used in building things too. So it's this metal, nice shiny stuff, called aluminum. You may hear it referred to as aluminum foil that you use in the kitchen. But a lot of things in our house are made out of aluminum too, like the frames and windows and some type of structures. It's also commonly used in various types of cans with have liquids in it, soda pop and whatever, the Red Bull and stuff like that. So there's many, many uses for aluminum. Now, however, though, if you were in this metal industry and working for aluminum and your boss said, go find me some more of this stuff, would you go looking for something that looks kind of nice and shiny, silvery like this? Nope. You'd go looking for a rock or an ore rock that looks kind of like that. I hope that's kind of showing up. But it doesn't look like anything like aluminum, does it? Nope. Kind of gray with little speckles and spots in it. This is not a very common ore. It's not found in very many places on Earth. We have very little here in the United States. There's a little bit in Arkansas and some of the Carolinas. A lot of it comes from Jamaica. That's where we import a lot of the ore. An ore is a rock that we mine out of the ground to extract some material from it, like the aluminum or the steel, or excuse me, the iron or the copper, whatever's in that rock. Because as y'all probably learned by now, rocks are a mix of different types of elements, different types of minerals. So finding bauxite could be a little challenging. So there's another example of an earth resource. Now, putting that one aside, let's see here. What should we go to next? Well, here's a pretty simple one. Glass. Now, we all know what glass is. It's used in your windows, your windshields on your car. A lot of kitchenware is made of glass, glass bottles, things like that. Okay, well, glass is made from sand. And it has to be certain types of sand that are high in the mineral quartz. If we were to test this for what's mineral in it, what we'd get would be quartz, is the mineral that makes up most of glass. So, now not all sands are going to be good for making glass from. If they have other minerals mixed in with them, it's not too good for making glass from. So that's another thing that some geologists get to do, to go find nice clean sand like this. Here, I guess that's the focus. And when we find it, then we can mine it out of the ground, melt it down, and make glass objects out of it. So let me go to another one here. Let's see here. Oh, here's another example. For any of those who are familiar with building and what homes and things are made out of, this is called wall board, or gypsum board sometimes. And probably the inside wall of most of your homes are made from this. I mean, you may not see this itself because it's usually painted over, so you can't see this material itself. But the walls in most homes are made from this stuff called wall board or gypsum board. Well, this is, and if you look at it, it's kind of a white powdery stuff. Scratchy there. When they mold this, they put it between these sheets of paper. But this comes from a mineral called gypsum, which looks kind of like that. Kind of a glassy look to it. Doesn't look too much like this at all, does it? Well, see, here's another thing. The geologists need to know, what environment do I find this type of rock in? Where are we going to look for it? Now, it's a fairly common mineral, but I mean, you don't find it everywhere. And you also want it to be of a certain quality so that you can make good quality materials out of it. So there's an example of some gypsum. Okay, now here's another good one. This is a piece of concrete. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. Your sidewalks are made of concrete. Your driveways probably are. It's used to make some streets, and it's used in a lot of buildings. Okay, so trying to get a good focus on that. But this is concrete. Make many, many things out of it. But what is concrete made from? Well, there's several things that go into it. And they include sand, like I held up a moment ago, some sand. There's usually some gravel, like that. Gravel's little pieces of stone. They're usually like size of a pea or bigger. And the key ingredient is this gray powdery stuff. I don't know how well you can see that there, but there's sort of this gray powder in here, which is called cement. Well, cement is the material that we mix with that sand and gravel, and what makes it stick together. I sort of refer to cement as being the glue that makes concrete. Now, cement is made from certain types of limestone. Now, and I don't know if you're in the Central Texas area, we have a number of quarries where they mine this limestone out to grind it up and heat it and process it to make this powder that we call cement. So, but keep in mind, cement and concrete are not the same thing. The cement is the glue that holds little rocks together to make concrete. So, cement. Anyhow, let's go find another one. One of the interesting things, it can be challenging to a geologist when they're told to go find something, is that, and you all may have already studied this in your classes and learning that rocks and minerals, is this huge variety of different types of rocks that all, they may not all look the same. Here's an example of some banded sandstone. The orange color is some iron in there, so it gives it that rusty color. Here's another type of rock. This is a volcanic rock called scoria. So it's all full of holes. It's very light. This rock will actually float on water because of all the air bubbles in it. And even, you get some rocks that kind of change color in themselves like that. This is some more limestone and so forth. So many different types of limestone. Some make good cement, some don't. So this is one of the things that geologists have to know. What type of specific limestone am I looking to make this product out of? Let's see, go find another example here. Okay, here's another good one. Now here's a rock. And if you'll notice, it's kind of a sort of an orange, red, rusty color. Now, if we were here face to face, I would probably ask you, what's in this rock that gives that rusty color? Well, this is a piece of rock that is iron ore, and it's the iron in it that gives it that rusty orange reddish color. I mean, if you think about, and iron is used to make a variety of things, but the most common thing is we make out of iron is steel. Lots of things made out of steel. You probably got a lot of them in your home. I mean, you know, nuts and bolts, you know, tableware, spoons, that's got a lot of steel in it, you know, steel cans, you know, paper clips. I don't know if you can see that. You know, there's a hinge made out of steel. And lots of other things, okay? I mean, most of your car is made out of steel. There's probably steel in parts of your home. If you're sitting at a table or a chair right now, probably the legs on it are made out of steel. So it's a widely used material, so we have a lot of need for the iron to make the steel out of, to make all these products we use in our everyday life. So let's see here. Let me go find something else now. What have we not looked at? Here's a couple examples. Yes. Now, a lot of things we use in our everyday lives have a variety of materials in them, you know, particularly things that are electronic, like a phone or, you know, a light bulb. Like, for instance, this light bulb, well, the spiral parts on it, those are made from glass. The white base here, this is made from a plastic. The bottom part, the threaded part that you screw into the light socket, that's made of aluminum. There's a little bit of lead on the bottom, and that black stuff is some glass material. So there you got, and there's probably some copper inside of it that we can't see. So there's a single item, use them every day, got them in your house. Trying to find a good focus zone here. It's got several different types of materials made from different types of earth resources. So, you know, same thing for our electronics phone. I mean, it's got, you see it's outside on the plastic, but when you look inside, it's got copper, probably got some aluminum. So there's a lot of earth resources we use to make the things we use in our everyday life. So I'll find another example here. Here's a good one. Well, here's an example, and this has some oil in it, or petroleum. It's very important earth resources. We make a lot of things from petroleum. And there's a lot of geologists that they spend their whole career looking for more of this resource, the petroleum. I mean, it's found in many places on the earth, but not everywhere. So, but it's a good resource. It's a very important resource here in Texas. It's a big part of the Texas economy. So we take petroleum and we can make a variety of things out of it, you know, like the fuel, the gasoline in your car, the diesel in your truck, you know, the oil you put in the engine to lubricate it. A lot of plastics are made from petroleum. There's some plastic piping. Though the use of petroleum for plastics, we're sort of getting away from that and using more type of plant materials to make plastics from. But it's still being used, petroleum is still being used for making plastics. So those are just a few examples of the many, many, many uses of petroleum. So let's see, what else we got here? Now, one thing to keep in mind about all these things, particularly like the aluminum, the steel, is when you're done with something that's broken or worn out, what do you do with it? Well, there's a little word called recycle. That's very important because a lot of the earth resources, there's only a limited amount there. And if we, sooner or later, if we don't recycle and reuse, we're going to run out of them. So that's why to keep in mind, recycle everything that you can, the plastic, the glass, the steel, the copper, all those other materials. So let me see what else we got here to talk about. Give me a moment. Well, for those of you who want to get a little on the fancy side, there's a little, I don't know if y'all can see this very well, but this little rock I'm holding up here, you can see the color to it. That's a little gold nugget right there. Now, many people think that's the most valuable resource out of the earth. Well, it's really not, but some people like to think gold, oh yes, because I mean, we use it for a lot of things. You know, we make jewelry out of it, rings and so forth. gold wire that's used in some type of electronics because it's a good conductor of electricity, and it doesn't corrode or rust like other metals do. So it's used in a lot of electronics, and there's other uses for gold. So, and there again, gold's only found in certain places around the world. So the geologist got to go figure out, where can I find more gold? So let's see what else we got here. We've gone through steel, copper, gold. Yeah. Well, a very common material, earth material is clay. Okay, and there's many things. It's a pretty common, widespread. You find lots of clay everywhere, but there's many different types of clay. And some clays are good for making things from. Others, no, they don't work very well. But I mean, examples of clay might be, clay tiles like you find, used in. Oh, they're commonly used in bathrooms, but sometimes in kitchens and places like that. These little tiles. They're also good for making bricks. Most bricks are made out of clay. So see, there's several places in Texas that make these kind of bricks. So. Yeah, I mean, there's some very special bricks out there too. So anyhow, let me show you other good examples here. Oh, here's one. Yes, almost forgot this one. Excuse me if I take a quick sip of water. When we talk about a pencil, and you ask people, oh yeah, what's that inside the pencil that actually makes the mark? And we call it lead. Well, it's actually not lead, okay? It's a material called graphite. And there again, it's not found all over the world, only found in certain places. But the reason is, even though this is made from graphite, why do we still call it lead? Well, before they figured out, hundreds of years ago, how you can make pencils and writing things out of graphite, they were actually writing with lead. I mean, here's a sample of some lead ore, galena. It's that kind of shiny thing there. This is a chunk of galena, which is one of the ores the geologists get to find. We mine out of the earth and take the lead out of that. The reason they still call pencil lead as lead is because if you take a piece of metal lead here, I don't know if y'all can see that, it does mark on paper, okay? So long ago, they did use lead to mark on things like that. But nowadays, it's all being done with graphite. But the name lead still holds for use in pencils. And there's other things made out, besides, this is some lead sheeting. Here is some solder wire, which is made from lead. And there's a variety of other things made out of lead. Though now here's an example of a piece of what I mentioned a minute ago called graphite. Now this is this mineral this is what we now use to make pencil leads with, because if you can see my markings there, makes good markings. So that's why we're using the graphite in these days to make pencils with, but they still call it lead. Now the graphite is used for a variety of other uses in electronics. It can also be powdered up to make a very, very fine lubricant. So anyhow, let's see what else we got here. Well, how are we doing for time, Linda? Okay, now, here's an example. So far, everything I've talked about is you have to take a certain type of rock and then process it. And there's a variety of different processes for the rock. Usually it has to be mined out of the ground, taken to a refinery or a place where they take that rock and they usually have to grind it up. Sometimes they have to heat it to melt it or get the metals out or add chemicals to mix in to get out of that rock the material that you want. But there are a number of rocks that we use pretty much as is, however they got out of the ground. And one that some of you may be familiar with is this rock called granite. Okay, some of you may have this in your homes, for countertops and things like that. So this is used pretty much as it is, comes out of the ground. They just got to mine it out of the ground, slice it up, polish it, and make things out of the granite. And if you're wondering, is there any examples of granite here in Austin? Well, if you're ever driving down Congress, and there's kind of that big break there in Congress, and there's a big tall building there, it's the state capitol. It's made out of granite. It was mined or quarried from some granite deposits out in central Texas. So, see what else we got here. Yeah, here's another example. I mean, batteries, they're kind of in the same category as when I showed you electronics, but you know, batteries, they have a little steel case on them. The tops are made out of steel. The chemicals inside can be a mixture of several different types of earth materials that they have to mix together to make a battery, okay? So the type of minerals that will hold the electricity, store it, if you will, in a battery. So let's see here. I would ask you all for questions if you were in front of me, but I think I've pretty much run out of examples here of things to show.
John, that's a great overview of so many different materials. I know you could probably go on and on the different materials that we use. And I'm so glad you were here because this is actually the American Geosciences Institute that started Earth Science Week, and we're doing it this whole month. Has a theme each year, and this year the theme is Earth Materials, about how Earth materials impact humans and how humans impact Earth materials. So what you covered today was a really good, quick kind of insight into how many everyday things that we all have in our homes, and I really appreciate it. Yeah, well, I have you in the group, though. One of the goals for our Austin Earth Science Zoomerama, as it was in the past 20 years in our career day focus, is talking to students about your careers. So would you mind sharing with us what inspired you to become a geologist?
Well, somewhat interesting story. So going through high school, I was a science nerd, you know, chemistry, physics, all that, astronomy, all that. I really enjoyed science. So when I started college, I was on the track to, you know, be a physics and or chemistry major. And for some long forgotten reason, probably when I was like a sophomore in college, I think, you know, you usually have to go take some miscellaneous science class that has nothing to do with what you're focusing on. So I took a basic intro to geology course. And then shortly into it, I realized, because I had some great teachers for that, when I realized, oh, we get to pile in the vehicles and head out in the countryside, up in the hills, take our little rock hammers and go beat on the rocks and just do all this fun stuff outside. I checked the track. I'm on the geology track now, and I don't regret it. It's been a fun, enjoyable, sometimes challenging career, but it's a very down-to-earth profession. So that's how I got into it.
Well, and I just have one other one. Thanks for sharing that. I'm glad, fun. The speakers that have shared that have talked about their love or their interest in fun. So I'd have to say there's many different areas to work in the geoscientists, and we hope that as you consider your career path, you'll think about becoming a geoscientist. John, water was something that was in your background, and that's an important earth material. Can you share a little bit about how you helped find water resources or evaluate that?
That's a very good question. In fact, that's one of the items I forgot to put in a few minutes ago.
Oh, yes.
We look at all the resources we get out of the earth, the copper and the iron and, all the various petroleum and things like that. But the most single resource that we get out of the earth is this, not the plastic, but the water inside there. We can survive without any of these other things. We can't survive without this one. Water is critical to our lives. We can get by without the gold, the copper, the silver, the aluminum, all this other stuff. So that's actually been an area of geology I've practiced in for back in the last century sometime. It's a lot of what I do these days is, we have basically two sources of water. One is surface water that we get from rivers and streams and lakes and so forth. But in a lot of areas in the world, those don't exist, particularly in more arid environments. Then we have to go try to find if there's groundwater or what we call aquifers, which are rocks down in the ground that hold water in them. Kind of like, I call aquifer, for a simple way to put it, is like a sponge made out of stone. And so that's a fair amount of my work these days, is going and finding good aquifers that have good water that we can get out of the ground and, use as a resource in our everyday lives. So keep in mind, The most important thing we get out there is not petroleum, it's not gold, it's not diamonds, it's that.
Thank you. That's a great way to put that into perspective. It's true. And we have several speakers coming to talk to the group in the Zoomerama about water because of that importance. So thank you, John. I really appreciate it. That was a great presentation. And part of what we want to do in the Zoomerama to support students and teachers is to share some educational resources. So now I'd like to share my screen with you and show you our webpage for Rock Your World on our Zoomerama website and the educational links that we have there. Okay, this is at the Bureau website, the Rock Your World page, and you'll see here we gave you an overview of the presentation, and at the bottom you'll see educational resources. Now, since this topic is Rock Your World, I have to take a moment to tell you about a new wonderful rock garden, the Stoneburner Family Rock Garden, established at the Bureau of Economic Geology, and it was just formally opened about a year ago. We are very thrilled to have that site. It is on our campus at the Pickle Research Center, and it is huge boulders of rocks from around the state brought in and in a beautiful landscape to allow us to showcase some of the key formations in the state. But not only that, if you go to the webpage, you'll see there's a link for the Stoneburner Family Rock Garden. And we have this website that I would encourage you students and teachers to explore. We have video or audio tours, and they've been translated into 12 different languages. And you'll see you can select rocks. The rocks in Texas at the surface are as old as 1.3 billion years old, up until just sedimentary river terrace deposits that might have been put there last week in a flood. So these are the sediments through these old ancient rocks. And as you walk through the rock garden, and this is open to the public, it's outdoor. Once you click on one of the here's the Town Mountain Granite, for instance, that the Texas State Capitol is made from. You'll see an image of the big boulder in our collection. It will give you information about the rock and the rock type. There is an audio that goes through some background that you can play. And then for advanced students, there's geologic maps, cross sections, and detail. So this is a very rich collection that you can use as a resource to look at some of these incredible rock formations we have here in the state of Texas. Now, another activity that we selected was one from a resource that AGI, the American Geoscience Institute, posted in their calendar in 2019. It is called Investigating Rock Types. And if you click on that PDF, we formatted it for this Zoomerama. This is an activity that meets the next generation science standards. So it's a high quality activity. And it encourages classrooms to bring in a rock sample and with the hand lens and their observations, which is a key skill for geoscientists, to have very good observation skills. On an index card, each student describes their rocks, and you try to stay away from just the size and size of the rock, big rock, small rock, but look at other descriptors that you can use, like the texture and so forth. Then you line your rocks up in a row, and you switch cards with someone else in the class. And then that student's job is to try to look at the rocks and match the description on the index card with the right rock. And then afterwards, as a class, you discuss it. And maybe there was a problem with it. You go back and you help each other come up with better descriptors, which is really key. And if you do end up studying geoscience, you'll learn some key descriptors for rocks. But that is something that you could do as an activity with the class, or if you're working at home, perhaps you can involve your family in doing this. So that I'd like to encourage you to just go beyond what we've done here in this and do some hands-on kind of experiment. Look at rocks and see what you can do to understand them and identify them. So with that, I think, unless John, if you have any other comments.
Consider, becoming a geologist. Like I say, I know in my career it's been interesting, challenging. I've worked several places around the earth, the globe, whatever, different countries. And there's there's actually a broad spectrum of geology. And geology is a very interdisciplinary science. I mean, it involves physics, math, chemistry, sometimes biology. There's even a few geologists that are in the astronomy side of things. That, they don't worry about the Earth. They're busy trying to figure out how the planets and the moons, things like their geology up there. So, and one of the things, like I said earlier, that attracted me is that it doesn't require you to sit at a desk shuffling papers and a keyboard 8 hours a day. I mean, as a geologist, we got to gather data for whatever it is we're studying, and we got to analyze. And then we usually have to sit down and write a report to turn over to our client or our boss or whoever. But, it's that opportunity to get outside and learn a little bit more about the world around us and its resources and some of its wonders. So that's, like I said earlier, that's kind of one of the things that sort of caught my attention.
Yes, I agree with you. And then not everyone likes to be out in the field, although you have to understand the principles and learn field geology. There are many geoscientists who spend their time in labs. They work a lot with labs. They do 3D models. There's a lot of specialization that goes on. So it's amazing. Geosciences, the broader term, kind of envelops that. We work in interdisciplinary teams with engineers, physicists. It's a really broad description. And if you have a curious mind and like science, consider the geosciences. It has much relevance in people's lives. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and end for today. Thank you very much for joining us. For those of you watching on YouTube, if you have a question that we didn't answer in today's discussion, you can leave a comment below and we'll do our best to get an answer to you. But also check the description on the video links for more information on our website. You may find we have a lot of information there that could help you. And don't miss our next talk. It's this Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Our speaker is Lynn Falquist with the USGS, and she will be presenting the USGS Streamer. Where do American rivers come from and where do they go? And again, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Get out and rock your world.
Thank you.